Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.L. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, October 12th, 2018. And this is our weekly look back at last week's eBay auction results and Catawiki results, and take a quick look at a few things that are coming up this week on the web for sale for Chinese and Asian art. And this is last week's newsletter that we put out. If you're a subscriber, you're already getting it. And there were some very interesting things on there, and we're going to go through. The prices were actually quite strong. Despite all the bits and pieces of turmoil in the world, things seem to be doing pretty well. All right, and we're going to click over here. We're going to take a look at something that was on Catawiki. This was a sort of a nice old kendi that someone had put up over there, and had a nice shape to it. It was sort of rustically drawn, but it did pretty well. It brought $643. It was the late Ming, early Wan Li, late Wan Li period piece. You've seen them before. Pretty typical. Perfectly nice thing, and appeared to be in good shape. So I think that was a pretty good buy. Also over there, last weekend was this nice looking deer bowl with a nice old box, good old Japanese box with it. As you know, a lot of the stuff that was shipped to Japan as part of trade ended up with these beautiful boxes, and often when we see collections and big auction houses come up, they'll often include the boxes, or sometimes include pictures of the boxes at the end with they were often tagged in Japanese kanji. And this one did pretty well. It was a deer bowl, late Ming. They call these crack bowls sometimes with the deer on them. It brought $1,003. Which is a pretty reasonable price for that. A nice example. They're getting some nicer things over there. So if you haven't tried Catawiki yet, you might. You might want to give it a whirl. They have some good things. And then after that, they had a good-looking tobacco leaf plate, Chinese export. It's a well-known type. These turn up on the market from time to time. They did big services of them and so forth. All right. And this one brought $862. All right. And now moseying on, this was that incense. This is a Ming incense burner. I thought this would do better. This was, I think, one of the bargains of the week. This was a nice incense burner, and it was good size. Did have a line in it, but this was an early one, early 16th century burner. Beautifully done, nice finish on it, good looking inside. And this was pretty good size. It had a couple of nicks out of it, but this was a good burner, okay? High-footed. They're not very common. It's based on a bronze form. And look at this. It only brought $461. And if you didn't bid on it because you thought, it's going to bring $1,000 or $1,500 or something, as I always say, leave a bid. All right. I think this was one of the better buys of the week. There were a few good buys of the week, and we're going to get into them as they come along. But I think that was a nice buy. I liked that a lot. All right, and then on to this. This was one of my favorite things. This was that great little soapstone carving with the Lohan on it. A beautifully finished face. I loved the face on this guy. Let's see if we get a better shot of it. There it is. He's smiling. The teeth are all fully rendered. He's carrying a double gourd. Beautifully colored, lots of detail in the carving. This was a nice example. And it brought, not surprisingly, $1,083. It was only about 4 inches tall, a little over 4.5 inches tall, but a great little table object. Liked that a lot. That was, Egmont Horn had that. He gets good things. And then on to this transitional period reticulated bowl. Beautiful quality, nicely done. There's the picture of the bottom of it. Here it is, okay. And these turn up in Europe, in the Netherlands in particular, and it did pretty well. It brought $1,307, but very nice quality. And these walled reticulated bowls are pretty rare. All right, and this was a seller we haven't seen too much of. We're going to keep an eye on them. Urine Antiques. They are in London. All right. And now moving on to this. This was that nice big late 19th, early 20th century informal robe, but interesting color. I love the color of this. This was a really, really nicely done piece, and the ground color in it was quite unusual, and it appeared to be in quite good shape. It had the standard, whenever you look at these robes, always look up here when they hang them for signs of wear. They'll give you an idea what the robe lining is like. There's a little bit of wear at the top of the collar, which is pretty typical on these. But overall, this was a nice looking robe, and it did very well. It brought $3,333. All right, and this was from the seller Tab Gatch. He's located in New York City, and gets good things also from time to time. He comes on. Not a lot of feedbacks, but he's good. And then they had this Kangxi bowl, this nice one with this powder blue ground and the fan-shaped backgrounds filled with landscapes with underglazed blue and iron red. Tough combinations, as you know. Kangxi period excelled at these, and because if the red isn't done right, if the copper oxide is misfired, it tends to turn green, all kinds of weird colors. But this was a nice plate, and apparently people liked it a lot. It brought $1,199. This was also from that seller, Uran. All right, and then on to this. This was a very good first half of the 19th century export fan. And you notice in the middle is a monogram. And what this means is that this piece was custom made. This was a custom made fan for a particular person with their monogram in it. There were fan makers, and you could give them letters or initials, a drawing. They used to work off of drawings, and they would carve that in the center for you if you wanted your initials on it. And these were premium pieces at the time. You paid a lot extra to have your initials put on it. They also did the same, as you know, with export porcelains and so forth. All right, but I like this. It was different trades. It had farm scenes with farmers walking along. Beautifully done, top quality product. And it brought $1,288. This was from a seller in Dublin, Ireland. One of the things I wanted to mention was, too, speaking of ivory, we had two really good Cantonese ivory card cases in the newsletter last week. And when we were checking back today, eBay removed them because you're not supposed to sell ivory on there. People do it all the time, but somebody must have reported it and gotten them kicked off the site. All right. Look, if you're interested, I hope none of you guys are reporting people for selling antique ivory. There's no harm in it. The stuff is, has no impact at all on the ivory market. So if you see a piece of antique ivory, don't go turning them into eBay like a bunch of children. All right, let them sell their property if they want to. Just my aside on it. All right, and then on to this, the big pair of Famille Rose Medallion vases. This was a nice big pair. It had chimeras, very typical with these foliate rims, the chimeras on the shoulder, foo dogs on the neck. Good example. You can get an idea how big it is by that Coke can. Maybe this guy could switch to a wine bottle or something. At any rate, the Coke cans in the pictures. People use them all the time. I always think it's kind of odd. Any rate, the pair brought $792, which is pretty much in the range for these. These are 17-inch vases. It was a pretty good buy because we've seen them all in the past. If you've been watching these videos for any length of time, and you know that you've seen these go up for upwards of $1,300 or $1,400 at times for pairs. All right, pairs are very desirable. And the Grand Pip had this. He's a seller over in the UK that we check out almost every week, pretty much every week. And then on to this. This was that Wang Hing salt cellar. This is one of the bargains of the week. Wang Hing was a very well-known silversmith in China. He made a lot of export stuff, card cases, small bowls, and plates. And this was a salt cellar, obviously made for the Western market. And look at this. It only went for $66, okay? That was a tremendous buy. That was a good buy. And this was signed. All right, that was a very good buy. This should have brought $250 to $350, somewhere in there. Salt cellars are pretty rare. All right, and then on to this 18th-century Celadon. I like this bowl. It's not especially old or especially rare, but it's well done. And if you check out the bottom of it, it's got that very typical 18th century base. It's canted inward, nicely glazed. But I love the texture of the Celadon, of the glaze on this. The texture of it was really great, very tactile looking, and a very good large crackle. And I had a couple of minor issues over in here. It looks like some sort of a crack occurred, but they're typical on these. All right, and this was a nice looking bowl, and it brought $676. It didn't go cheap, but I just liked it a lot. I like the thick rim on it too, good characteristics. And on to this. This seller had a number of teapots up. It's funny how some of these guys, I guess they get into collections of teapots and they put them all up at once. This was a nice high-footed example of underglazed blue and precious objects, and it's got this big, early, Shang type bronze with peacock feathers coming out of it, which you often see in decoration. And the foot rim was decorated with little Buddhist symbols. Here's an apocryphal Ming mark on the bottom. It's a 19th century pot, but very nicely done. And it brought $643. All right, this was also Grand Pip, had that. Okay, and now on to this. This was the tree pattern, the central tree, Kangxi plate. Good-looking decoration. The gilding on it looked nice, and this is a very popular pattern. People always love these, and it's the mixture of patterns and then the effective use of negative space around the outside. Nice negative space on the inside with a sole tree sort of growing up gnarly in the middle, and then flowers and so forth. And this did pretty well. It brought $602. All right. And then onto this is very brightly colored enameled Kangxi, sort of Chinese Amari plate, underglazed blue, overglazed red, and some gilding. And those are all the colors that are in it. These are very simply colored, but they give the impression that they're very colorful. They have more colors in them than they do. And it's just really barely 3 colorware. It's really 2 colorware with some gilt and a slightly dressed brown rim. And it did okay. It brought $206, but this bowl was in perfect condition. And I think that was a nice buy. And the seller had another one as well. So maybe whoever bought it bought the other and ended up with a good pair. All right. And then onto this. This was the fan, the framed fan disc that was in like this with a landscape, some calligraphy and script. Nice old frame with some bamboo built into it. And it did pretty well. It brought $1,225. All right. And now on to this. This was the mystery cup. This is still a mystery to me, to be honest. It's a nice looking Famille Rose cup. Does not appear to be especially old. Not ancient, certainly. Nicely done. And it brought a price that I'm confused about, I have to admit. I don't have any idea. This looks like it came maybe out of a nesting set. Often you see this same exact form in nests of graduated sizes, and there might be 10 or 15 of these bowls stacked one inside the other. And it was an interesting scene and all that. But look at the price it brought, $3,650. All right. That is a total mystery. I'm curious to see if whoever bought it didn't really pay for it and there was something else going on, because that to me, looks like a very high price for that. But, it can happen. Maybe there's just 2 people that just can't live without the thing. Who knows? All right, and then on to this. This was over on Catawiki. This was a charming little chanchi Chinese for the Japanese market dish, and just with 2 chicks in it. I love the simplicity of this. This was a very attractive package, very much in the Japanese taste, and it did pretty well. It brought $468. These were all late Ming, and that was a nice little dish. All right, if you collect chanchi wares, you might check out over there. All right, and then on to this. I threw this in just because I know some people collect Rose Medallion, and this is a Rose Medallion chestnut basket with its original under tray and all that. Looks to have a little bit of a nick here, but that's about it. And some of these can have handles and some of them don't. And this one brought $270. So that's sort of the market range right now for these examples, for these pieces. A couple of $100 to $400, okay? And then on to this. This was a nice mandarin decorated, straight-sided, very elegant, first half of the 19th century teapot. Gilding on it was in good shape. It had nice strap handles. Very early 19th century, I would guess, judging by the form. I don't think it's 18th century, just my opinion on it. Here's the top of it. And because strap handles are generally associated with 18th century pots, I think this one was 19th century. At any rate, it brought, he said it was Dogwon period. I think it might be a little older than that, but regardless, $743, okay? But that was a very pretty pot, nicely painted. The scene on it was quite charming, and it was good size and in very good condition. Condition is always so important. All right, and this was something I put in the newsletter because I thought somebody out there might like a nice beautifully carved set of shelving for their objects, small vases or bowls or something. And I like this a lot, and I think it went for an absolute bargain. An absolute bargain. I think it was $175, and this was good size. There's a Diet Coke can next to it. You can see how big this thing was. And it went for $179. All right, that is very inexpensive. It's probably an early 20th century carving, but very fine quality. Imagine trying to hire someone to carve that. They'd charge you $2,000 or $3,000 to make that. That was a great buy for someone who wants to display things. All right, and then on to this. I put these in. I like carvings. I like bamboo carvings in particular. And this was a very nice pair of, and they were much larger than they looked. These are 13 inches tall. They look smaller in the picture. They look like almost like little joystick holders, okay? Here's a picture of the bottom, okay? One of them had a tiny hole in the bottom for some reason. I don't know why. Here's a picture of the side. But these were well carved. They were 19th century brush pots and big ones. And these were not the Japanese ones. A lot of the big ones are Japanese. All right, but here's a picture of them to give you a better idea. He should have used this as his primary photo because they give the impression of having been very small. These are big, nicely done, good patina, nice surface brush pots. And wait till you see what they bought. $180 for the pair. That was a bargain. That was a great buy. He says the late 19th to early 20th century. Egmont Horn had them. I think he's a little conservative. I think they were a bit older than that, but 1860s or 70s. But very nice quality, and somebody got a great buy. Carved woodenwares on eBay can be fabulous buys. All right, so if you like them, search around it. You can generally get a very good purchase for yourself. All right, and always leave a bid. I'm going to say that until the day I die. Leave bids. All right. Everybody sees things they like, and they go, I'll put it on the watch list. I'll do this. No, get involved. Leave a bid on it, and see if you don't get lucky. As I mentioned, we have a lot of people out there that just go through and they leave dozens of bids sometimes, and sometimes they get 5 things in a week for a fifth of what they thought they'd go for. You never know. All right, and then on to this. This was a good-looking little teapot. It's a well-known form. Everybody's seen them. They were made in the second half of the 19th century, and this was a good one. Nice gilding and some characters on it and so forth. Brought $897, okay? And this was in perfect shape. There were no hairlines, cracks, or restorations on it. All right, and this was a seller we'd not seen before. It's got a very long name. Jack's Estate Liquidators, whoever they are. They're in Florida someplace, Interlaken, Florida. They only have 70 feedbacks, but we'll keep an eye out. And then there was this nice, big, very classical-looking transitional period or transitional style jar. It was a 19th century one, but nicely done, very well done. Good, strong colors, nice underglazed blue, neatly decorated. And, if you don't have, $4,000 to $7,000 to spend on a period one, this was a pretty good buy, $750. It had been drilled as a lamp, but so what? Nice big pot, nice big jar. All right. And then on to here, again, you can still find very nice, large Chinese export 18th century platters on eBay for very reasonable prices. And this one only went for a couple of $100, but I liked the central scene with this sort of hula dancing willow tree and these nice big gutsy flowers, and then this sort of root form table with precious objects on it. It's sort of Chinese taste, but this was an export plate, and a nice one. And as I said, about $206. All right, that's a very reasonable price for that. All right, and then on to this, the Famille Rose pillow. Some people collect pillows. There are a number of people we've seen over the years that have collections of pillows. This is a late 19th, early 20th century example, again with these black birds on it. Let me see, there they are. When you see these black angulated birds, in general, always think, later 19th, early 20th century. They were quite popular as secondary motifs. And but this was a nice looking pillow. And it went fairly reasonably, $493. And it was in very nice condition. It was a good example. All right, and then on to this. This was that 18-inch pear-shaped Mandarin export vase, mid-19th or a little before, mid-19th century, a little before. Interesting scene and in really good shape. You notice here on the, always when you see these like gilded chimeras or lizards, if they're gilded like this, look at the high points and see if the gilding has been worn down. And generally, if the gilding is in good shape here, it's going to be in pretty good shape through the whole piece. And this had a nice, strong enamels, very neatly drawn. And I think this was a very good buy for the week for someone that got it. Look at this. All of the gilt and the hair is still in place. Nobody had ever abused this washing it, the gold here. Because gold is very susceptible to coming off because it was fired at a much lower temperature than the regular enamels. This only went for $634. And I think that was a nice buy. That was a good buy for someone like that. And then on to this sort of transitional period, a little before jar. Very typical of these. You see them around, but for people that collect them, this was a pretty good buy. It only went for $401. Okay, all right. If you collect, transitional Shunzi, early Kangxi things, that was a nice little pot. And then on to this was that Neue Straits. This was listed as hand-painted small mini jar pot with lids and marks. Okay. Loud Dreams is the seller. I think she's a general seller. Didn't really know what this was. This was very small, though. This was a small Neue Straits pot. Nicely done. Good colors. And it went for $693. All right. I think she was probably surprised by that. But this was small. I want you to understand. This was very small. It was 6 centimeters high, including the lid. So it was, 2.5, 3 inches tall. This was a very small piece. And these Neue Straits examples tend still to have very strong interest from collectors. All right, and then there was this. This was over on Catawiki. This was a very nice plate, Qianlong period, more towards the early part of the Qianlong period, probably 1760 to 1770, 1750 to 1770, somewhere in there. But top quality decoration. This had great decoration on it, including an armorial crest at the top. And then with the birds and the very typical willow pattern that became so popular in England, but this was sort of the origins of it. And I think this was a very reasonable price, $585 for this with the coat of arms of the Toussaint family. All right, and that was a good thing. And then on to what's coming up. Those are all the things that sold. There were other things too. You can go and, if you've left bids or you come back to the newsletter before we change it, you can check other prices. But we're going to take a quick look at a few things that are ending over the weekend. I don't want the video to go too long. There's this nice 18th century water bucket. It's missing its lid. These are sort of rare, though, and these are big. This will be in the newsletter this week. This had a cover on here. Obviously, it's slotted through. It's based on a bamboo form. You can see the bamboo turning where they put it into the porcelain, and then they alternate with landscapes and sort of floating flower scenes. But that's a sort of a rare thing. It's a shame it doesn't have the lid, but you could probably have a nice wooden one made for it. And that was a water bucket. It's up to $135. Should do a lot better than that by the end. And there's also this nice big Kangxi blue and white vase. They call this a Mei Ping. I don't know why. This isn't a Mei Ping. It's just a great big jar. But it's a nice looking pot. And then over here, there's this very, very pretty sort of Cantonese style vase. Nice white, very pure white background, beautifully decorated. And this is Qing period has it up. It has a reserve on it. I suspect it's very close to the reserve right now. It's up to $760. It ought to bring, this is a big vase, I should mention. It's 43 centimeters tall. So it's about 18 inches tall. It should bring 2,000 or 3,000 pretty easily. All right, by the time it's over. But that's a very, very pretty vase, really is. And onto this is another piece that Qing period has up, this very good latter Kangxi period enamel plate. Beautiful soft blues in it, a nice looking brown rim. And again, good use of negative space on these. You want to look at these nice big openings here. Negative space adds so much to how these look. They get too. There are certain decorations that do lend themselves to very crowded, compact designs, and other decorations don't. And this is exactly the very tasteful type of decoration you want to see when they plan on leaving certain areas open to frame and accentuate them. But this is a nice plate, and this has a reserve too. It's up to about 250. It should bring 550 to 750 somewhere in there, I would guess. But a nice thing, a nice looking dish. All right, and that's it for the week. If you haven't subscribed to us here yet, please do. And as always, at the little button before you run away, click and give us a thumbs up. Help us with our visibility. Sign up for the newsletter over at Bidamount.com. We'll include the link down below. And have a great weekend. All right, it's October, and we're getting the fall foliage here in New England. It's kind of pretty. It was 80 here on Wednesday, which was rather shocking. But last dash of summer, and on we go. All right. See you all next week. We are working on the video, the auction results over in Hong Kong, and that'll be up probably Monday. Okay. Thanks again, and have a great weekend. And leave a comment or ask a question. Okay. Bye-bye.